Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. We have a fantastic video tutorial today. The topic is subtracting integers. So quickly get out your pencil, get out your composition book. Let's take some notes. Remember, whenever you see a red star, you need to write it down. Good. Okay. One important concept to understand. If you have one positive combined with one negative, what do you have? What value do you have? I have a positive, I have a negative. For example, here's a positive, and then here would be a negative. If I combine that one positive with one negative, or you could say it like this, if I say one positive plus one negative, well, what do you really have? You know, I know, it's just, you got zero, you got nothing. You got nothing. They balance each other out. And that's an important concept to grasp and understand when you're subtracting integers. So let's just discuss this. What if I gave you this problem, -2 minus 3? -2 minus 3. What do you think the value would equal? What do you think the difference would be? Not many of you would probably have said -5. And I know you're probably going, what? How -5? Well, let's talk about that. And it goes back to that one positive with one negative. So it starts with, if I'm looking at this problem, I start with a -2, which means I have two negatives. Here's two negatives. What does it want me to subtract? 3 positives. You see that? That is a positive. I need to subtract 3 positives. Well, how do I do that? Because I only have two negatives. So how in the world can I subtract 3 positives? Anybody? Yes, by adding 3 positives. Then you can subtract them. But if you add 3 positives, watch, if I add 3 positives to this problem, it makes it unbalanced, right? The scale just tipped. In order to balance out the 3 positives, I need to add 3 negatives. Right, add 3 negatives. That balances each other out, right? 3 positives plus 3 negatives gives you nothing. Okay, but now I can subtract 3 positives. So let's take it away. 1, 2, 3. And what do I end up with in the problem? Notice I end up with 5 negatives, and that's what I had here. That's my amount. So again, the counters help you understand why you're going to get this value. Now I'm just going to show you the process to solving these problems, because you're not going to always have counters to figure out the difference in a adding or in a subtracting integers problem. So write this down. First thing you should do when you're subtracting integers, the very first thing you should do when you're subtracting integers, okay? Press pause or write this down, then we'll go over it. First thing you should do, it says change the subtraction to addition. So do you see this subtraction? You're just going to change it to addition. Okay, but if you change the operation from subtraction to addition, you must change the sign of the subtrahend. The subtrahend is just the second number. This is the second number. This is the subtrahend, it's the second number. You must change that sign to the opposite of what it is. So right now, that's a +2. We're going to change it to a -2. Okay, well, let's just see if this works. And then you go back to now follow the adding integers rules. So remember that song we sang or sung? Maybe, sang? No. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. Okay, same signs, add and keep. Okay, so we end up with -3. And then now let's prove this with counters. The problem initially says I have a -1. I'm starting with a -1. It wants me to subtract 2 positives. I don't have 2 positives. There's not 2 positives here. The only way to subtract 2 positives is by adding 2 positives. Let's add them. But if I add 2 positives, I also have to add, to keep it balanced, to keep the value at nothing, I also have to add 2 negatives. So let's add 2 negatives. And now, look, I can take away my 2 positives. And what do I end up with? 3 negatives. See how that works? So let's just try this again. Here's the process. All I'm doing is showing you the process. First thing you do is change the subtraction sign to addition. So I'm going to change this to addition. Okay? And then you change the sign of the subtrahend to the opposite of what it is. Right now it's -2, so let's change it to a +2. And now sing the song to row your boat. Blah, blah, blah. Same signs, add and keep, different signs, subtract. Different signs, subtract. I'm subtracting. And then it says keep the sign that's furthest away from 0, and then you'll be exact. So this value is furthest away from 0. So you're going to keep that sign. You end up with a +1. And now let's just prove that with counters. So again, I started with, over here, I started with a -1. Oops, sorry. What's going on? Let's try this again. Started with a -1, okay? This time it wants me to take away 2 negatives. It says subtract a -2. But I don't have, I can only subtract a -1. In order for me to subtract a -2, I gotta add another negative, right? I added another negative that I can now subtract a -2. But if I add that negative coin, I gotta add a positive coin. Now I can take away the 2 negatives. And what do I end up with? I end up with a +1. Again, the counters help you see why you get this amount, but really you just have to remember this process. So all I want you to do is solve these 6 problems. Work them out, and then we'll talk about them on the next day I see you. Hope you guys enjoyed this video tutorial. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.